I'm sorry, I can't assist with that. The air hung heavy, thick with anticipation. Sarah felt her heart race, pulsing in her ears. She stood there, frozen, searching Alyssa's face for answers, for something more. The silence stretched. It was uncomfortable and charged with unspoken words. Alyssa stared back, eyes wide, her breath hitching in her throat. I didn't know until now, she stammered, tears pooling at the corners. The sight of her friend unraveling made Sarah's chest tighten. But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room. What was that? They whipped around, eyes darting. Outside, a crowd gathered, chattering nervously. Sarah's stomach dropped as she pushed past Alyssa, bursting through the door. The street was chaotic. People shouted, others hurried past, faces painted with fear. And then she saw it. The bright red of emergency lights flashing in the dim evening. A police car, sirens screaming like lost souls, parked awkwardly on the pavement. Something's happened, a stranger gasped, clutching a phone. I heard there was an explosion. Explosions. The word ricocheted through her mind. It was too extreme, too horrifying. Panic seized her body, tightening its grip. Her fingers trembled. The reality of the situation sank deep into her bones. What if someone had gotten hurt? Come on, we need to see, she urged, pulling Alyssa with her. They navigated through the throngs, adrenaline fueling their urgency. But as they neared the center of the chaos, a low rumble erupted. Then, silence. The crowd held its breath. Look, there, someone shouted. They turned just in time to see smoke billowing from a nearby building. It curled into the sky like a dark, sinister finger. Sarah squinted, and her heart plummeted. Who was in there? Was it safe? Mom! Alyssa's voice cracked. She pushed through the crowd, panic taking over. My mom works there! Wait! Sarah shouted, reaching for her. But Alyssa was already lost in the wave of bodies pushing toward the building. Stay back! One of the officers commanded, and fear surged anew. Sarah grabbed Alyssa's arm just as she was about to sprint into danger. No, I have to! Alyssa, we can't. It could be explosive. But like a bolt of lightning, the air split again. A scream echoed, raw and piercing, sending ice through Sarah's veins. Suddenly, the crowd shifted, gasping as a figure emerged from the smoke. Stumbling, clothes torn, skin singed. A woman staggered, coughing, her eyes wild. Help! Get back! Alyssa gasped. That's not... But who was it? The figure drew closer, the crowd parting like grudging waves around a storm. And then a face emerged from the haze, one that sent shockwaves of disbelief crashing through Sarah's mind. Mom? Alyssa's voice turned to a whisper, trembling with disbelief. But the woman's eyes went straight to Sarah, and the weight of recognition fell heavy. You shouldn't be here. A rush of confusion overwhelmed Sarah. Why was she saying this? The pieces began to shift. Alyssa stood frozen. What do you mean? Because, the woman rasped, because I'm not who you think I am. A chill shot through Sarah, tightening around her heart. Wrapped in fog and deceit, a new reality was dawning. What did that mean? No, Alyssa breathed, backing away, eyes wide with horror. No, what do you mean? Everything began to spiral. Secrets, lies, The truth had shattered the moment. What lay beneath the surface? And as the chaos surged, Sarah's mind raced with dread and confusion. What would happen now? What more was hidden in the smoke? Because I'm not who you think I am. The words hung like lead in the air. Alyssa's face twisted in confusion, her mind racing to process the impossible. "What do you mean?" she whispered, each word a plea for clarity. The woman struggled to stand straight, her gaze darting around as if searching for refuge. "Alyssa, please, you need to listen." But before she could elaborate, the earth shook beneath their feet. A deafening boom erupted, louder than the last. The ground trembled, and dust cascaded from the buildings like a dark rain. Sarah instinctively grabbed Alyssa, pulling her close. "Get down!" But it was too late. A blinding flash of white light erupted from the source of the smoke. In an instant, it engulfed everything, swallowing the crowd in a wave of heat and noise. Bodies tumbled away, lost in the frenzy of confusion. A searing pain shot through Sarah's arm as something struck her. She went down, landing on the pavement with a thud. The world swirled around her, a kaleidoscope of sound and chaos. The acrid smell of smoke overwhelmed her senses. "Alyssa!" she screamed, trying to push herself up, but faltering. Panic surged again as she looked around, her heart hammering in her chest. Where was her friend? Was she okay? "Mom! Mom!" Alyssa's voice cut through the chaos, but it was distant. Sarah's head spun, every instinct screaming to find her. A mess of bodies began to clear. Shadows moved, weaving through the wreckage. And then, a glimmer of familiar hair caught Sarah's eye. Alyssa was over by the debris, struggling against the crush of people. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. "Help!" Alyssa's voice was strained. "She needs help!" And then the woman, Alyssa's mom, was suddenly there, pushing through the wreckage. But she wasn't the only one. Another figure appeared, broad and imposing. "Get back!" the officer yelled, rushing forward. But it was too late. With an unexpected twist of fate, Alyssa's mom collapsed, arms splayed wide as if embracing the ground. This moment, frozen in time, shattered everything Sarah believed. "No! Mom!" Alyssa crumpled to the ground, her voice raw, breaking through the deafening noise. The chaos swirled like a tempest, but at that moment, Sarah felt a strange stillness. Something wasn't right. Invisible threads tightened around her chest. Then, a flash. The woman's face twisted in a mixture of relief and regret. "I'm sorry, Alyssa," she gasped. "You need to know the truth. I am your mother." "What?" "No." The words barely formed as Sarah's heart dropped. It was impossible. Every shared memory, every moment, the laughter, the love, she knew this woman. But then another truth dawned, cold and chilling. The woman was too young. Alyssa's mother had vanished years ago. A lost memory, a dark family shadow. Alyssa's eyes widened, loss and confusion warring within her. "No, you're not." The world spun again, a maelstrom of faces, filled with shock and horror. A tension coiled tight, each breath heavy with disbelief. And then another sound broke through, the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. "Get away from her, now!" It was the same officer, boyish in his authority but frantic. The crowd gasped, tension snapping dangerously. A moment stretched, holding its breath. What just happened? What truth was unraveling? Everything Sarah thought she knew was falling apart. As the smoke curled upward, heavy in the air, dark secrets stirred beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. The questions hung in the aftermath like an unbreakable curse. What now? What more lay hidden? The officer's shout hung in the air, thick with tension. Everyone felt it. Alyssa's mom lay there, breathless, helpless. Back. Away! But the warning fell flat. The crowd surged, pressing in too close. Fear blending with curiosity. Sarah's heart thundered. Alyssa's voice quivered, torn between shock and despair. "Mom, wake up!" She crawled toward the still figure, desperate and frantic. The woman's face was pale, lips dry. "Help her!" But no one moved. Not even the officers. All eyes were on her mom. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed from the smoke-filled building. People gasped. Was more danger coming? Then the night fractured. A loud crack rang out, snapping the air. Everyone turned instinctively, eyes wide. The building's structure was collapsing. "Run!" Someone shouted. Shadows darted, scrambling like wild animals. The crowd erupted into chaos, people pushing, shoving, desperate to escape. Sarah grabbed Alyssa, pulling her back against the wall to shield them from the stampede. All thoughts of Alyssa's mom slipped away. Survival took over. But just as they braced, the officer's voice boomed again, firm with authority. "We need to get you all clear." "Mom!" Alyssa screamed again, tears streaming. "I can't leave her!" The fear rolled off Alyssa, engulfing Sarah. "Alyssa, listen! We need to—" Another explosion, bright, blinding. Sarah lost her footing, the shockwave throwing her back. Alyssa screamed. A piercing sound that cut through the haze. When the light faded, Sarah blinked up at a scene she couldn't comprehend. The ground was littered with debris, smoke swirling and hiding faces. But then, confusion turned into horror. Out of the smoke, a figure came forward, tall, framing in the dimness. It was a man, a face twisted in anger, eyes wild, and he was holding something. No, it couldn't be. With shaking hands, he revealed a detonator. The crowd recoiled. Gasps echoing like ripples in a pond. "Stop! You'll kill everyone!" an officer barked, holding his weapon firmly. But fear etched on his features. The figure laughed, a horrifying sound that was not fully human. "You think this is over? You all have no idea!" Time froze. Every heartbeat was audible. Every breath felt like a weight. "Who are you?" Sarah managed to whisper. The man smiled, a dark, twisted grin. "The architect of this chaos, and so much more." Suddenly, he turned, shouting over his shoulder. "We're just getting started!" Then the ground heaved again. More explosions, more screams. In the thick of fear, a thought pierced Sarah's mind. He knew them. He knew them intimately. Then she glanced at Alyssa. Her friend's eyes were wide, tears mixing with dirt on her cheeks. What did he mean? But before Sarah could answer, reality twisted yet again. The man stepped closer, pointing directly at Alyssa. "And you, my dear, you carry the burden of truth, whether you like it or not." Alyssa's confusion morphed into something sharper. Fear mingled with recognition. "What are you talking about?" "Everything is connected," he hissed, voice slicing through the air. Your mother isn't just missing, she's part of this. And just as the weight of his words settled in, everything changed. Sarah turned, feeling the world shift. Beneath her, the man's words echoed, clawing at the edges of her mind. What truth? What burden? And how was Alyssa tied to this dark web? She needed to protect her friend, but the chaos around them was consuming. "Get back!" she shouted, pulling Alyssa closer as the heat from the smoke intensified. But the questions hung thick. What lay ahead? Who was this man? And more importantly, what truths were buried deep, waiting to be unearthed? A sudden silence fell over the crowd as the man's words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Sarah's heart raced like a wild stallion, thundering in her chest. She felt a pull, a tug towards something dark and hidden beneath the surface. Alyssa stood beside her, confusion twisting her features into a mask of fear. Your mother isn't just missing, she's part of this. The man's voice dripped with malice, his eyes gleaming with wicked excitement. "What do you mean?" Alyssa croaked, her throat dry with panic. But before he could respond, a loud crack echoed from behind them. Startled, Sarah turned just in time to see a huge section of the building's facade collapse, sending debris flying like shrapnel. Dust enveloped them, swirling blindingly. "Watch out!" Sarah screamed, shoving Alyssa down, shielding her with her body. A wave of heat rushed past, scorching and unbearable, leaving nothing but chaos in its wake. Alyssa struggled against her hold. "Mom, we need to help her!" "Not yet!" Sarah shouted back, her voice slicing through the clamor. They were trapped in a whirlwind of chaos. An instinct kicked in, the need to protect. Then something else happened, something that left Sarah's breath caught in her throat. From the corner of her eye, she noticed another figure emerging from the smoke. It was a young girl, barely older than 10, with wide, searching eyes. She seemed lost in the madness, wearing a tattered dress, her hair matted with soot. "Help," the girl whispered, voice barely audible over the cacophony. The world around them blurred, but that single word, "help," echoed loudly in Sarah's mind. She felt an unexpected pull to the girl. Who was she? Why was she here? With Alyssa still struggling against her, Sarah's instincts battled. "Stay here," she yelled, then released her friend's arm. Pushing through the throng to reach the girl, the faces in the crowd morphed into expressions of shock, a backdrop to the horror unfolding. As she got closer, she could see the girl's eyes brimming with unshed tears. They said to find you," she stammered, pointing back toward the fire. "Who?" Sarah asked, panic bubbling. "Who sent you?" But then the ground trembled beneath them, a low rumble that felt like the earth itself was warning them. The man with the detonator shifted, a smile creeping onto his face. A twist in the tail, he grinned, stepping closer, his eyes locked on the girl. "Ah, they've sent the key." The realization struck Sarah, sharp and painful. What do?" "You mean..." But before the man could reveal more, a rush of figures darted past, shoving through the crowd. They wore black clothing, faces obscured. "Get the girl!" one shouted, and suddenly it was chaos once more. Sarah's heart dropped. "No, stop!" she screamed, racing to intercept them. But they moved fast, determined. What were they after? "Alyssa!" Sarah yelled over her shoulder, knowing her friend was still behind her, lost in her own turmoil. Then, out of nowhere, a blinding light erupted from within the smoke again. Sarah shielded her eyes, feeling the heat lick at her skin. When she opened them, everything had shifted. The girl was gone. The crowd had thinned, confusion spreading like wildfire as people stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. The man grinned, teeth sharp in the light. "It seems I have something new to play with," he said softly, turning to the remaining people around. "And you will all find out soon enough what she really means." Time froze. Alyssa was at Sarah's side now, breathless. Where did she go? "I don't know." The man chuckled darkly, and Sarah's heart sank as she felt the weight of his gaze. In that moment, truth shattered. Nothing was as it seemed. The stakes had risen, and the game had twisted beyond anything she could have imagined. What truths lingered in the smoke? Who was this girl, and why had their lives become entangled in this madness? Sarah's chest tightened. This was only the beginning. The real horror was about to unfold. The man grinned, his gaze shifting between Sarah and Alyssa, eyes glinting like shards of glass. "You still don't understand, do you?" he sneered. Reveling in their confusion, the girl was only a piece in a much larger puzzle. Alyssa's expression twisted with uncertainty. "What do you want from us?" Her voice wavered, a fragile thread against the roar of chaos around them. "Don't you see?" he boomed, arms outstretched as if to embrace the swirling smoke. "This is about lineage, truth that runs deeper than you both know." His laugh reverberated, jagged and unsettling. Suddenly, a deafening roar cut through the confusion. Another explosion burst forth from the building, flames dancing like frenetic phantoms. Debris rained down, forcing the crowd to scatter, bodies colliding in panic. Dust hung thick in the air, blinding and suffocating. Sarah struggled to keep her footing, adrenaline surging. She grabbed Alyssa's arm, pulling her away from the chaos. "We need to move!" But Alyssa stood frozen, eyes wide, caught in the grip of fear and disbelief. "No, the girl!" Alyssa started, voice barely a whisper. "What did he mean?" Then, from the edge of the smoke, another figure emerged. A man, frail yet familiar, beard streaked with ash, eyes hollow. "Alyssa!" he shouted, voice cracking. "Alyssa, it's... Dad?" Alyssa's voice trembled, disbelief twisting her features. She stepped forward, but Sarah pulled her back. "No, stay with me." Sarah's chest tightened, a growing dread curling around her heart. But the man dropped to his knees, reaching for Alyssa. "You have to listen. She is..." Another explosion shattered the air. The ground bucked beneath them, sending shockwaves that reverberated through their bones. Sarah winced, glancing back. The chaos spiraled. And then, suddenly, there was an opening. "Run!" Sarah shouted, guiding Alyssa through the thrumming crowd. But Alyssa hesitated, looking back at her father, confusion marring her face. "Why now?" she cried, swallowing hard. "Why now, after all this time?" But he was already rising, stumbling toward her through the haze. "You don't understand. The truth, she..." And before he could finish, a flash of color caught Sarah's eye. The girl reappeared, standing still in the whirlwind, her eyes locked onto Sarah's, piercing and familiar. You have to find the truth. It's in her, in all of you. Sarah's heart skipped. Who? What truth? But the girl remained silent, staring intensely. Then everything shifted again, as the man with the detonator burst into motion, eyes darting. No, I can't let you! A sound rang out, louder than thunder, a deafening shot. Time froze, raw and broken. Sarah felt her heart shatter. A sisterhood of pain crashed over her. The truth felt closer, yet impossibly far. The man with the detonator grinned wider, eyes glinting with madness. You see now? The bloodline never lies, it only reveals. All the secrets burning beneath the surface. Alyssa dropped to her knees, hands trembling as she reached toward her father. No! Why? You left! You left me! What's going on? Sarah took a trembling step back, unsure whether to comfort Alyssa or confront the man, who was reveling in the chaos, feeding on their despair. A sudden realization hit hard. The girl, she knew something vital, something horrifying that connected them all. But before Sarah could speak, a new crack echoed through the frenzy. A low hum that spread through the ground. A finger of destiny slithering closer. Everything is about to change, the man proclaimed, a wicked smile curling his lips. You asked for the truth. Get ready to unearth it. Time seemed to pause, a heartbeat away from an explosion of revelation, leaving Sarah gasping in dread. What could possibly unravel next? And how would it transform everything they thought they knew? The air crackled with tension, the crowd a storm of confusion and fear. Sarah's heart raced, thumping against her ribs as she struggled to process the horror unfolding before her. The man with the detonator loomed closer, his eyes wild, savoring the chaos like a predator. Then, from the edge of the smoke, the girl appeared again, her expression a mix of urgency and fear. You're all part of this, she shouted, her little voice breaking through the noise as if trying to pierce the veil of confusion. Alyssa, we need to go, Sarah yelled, pulling her friend back toward safety. But Alyssa's gaze was locked on her father's lifeless form. Dad, she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Sarah felt her own heart twist. They couldn't linger. But then, before she could react, the girl started walking toward the detonator-wielding man. It was a bold, reckless move. You, she pointed, her small finger shaking. They said you're dangerous. They want her. Why are you doing this? Shut up, he roared. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. A moment passed where everything felt suspended. Then, Alyssa's father began to stir, his eyes fluttering, as if fighting to wake. No, Alyssa gasped, rushing to him, urgency ripping at her heart. But the man took a step back, panic flickering across his face. Step away from him! Time ground to a halt. The crowd held its breath. Sarah could feel the air shift. A strange tension building as something far more sinister loomed in the background. Then, as if the universe responded, an explosion echoed yet again. The ground shuddered violently. A massive piece of the building crashed down, sending everyone scrambling in every direction. Dust and debris filled the air, a choking cloud that swallowed them whole. Sarah stumbled, vision blurring. When the haze cleared, she saw the man had vanished. The chaos seemed to shift, the crowd erupting with screams and cries. Alyssa was still kneeling beside her dad, confusion and fear etched deeply into her face. But then another figure emerged from the smoke. A woman, dressed in black. Her eyes glimmered with something dark. "You've all been so naive," she said, a chilling smile creeping into her lips. "You thought it was over? You haven't even scratched the surface." Alyssa turned, eyes wide and fragile. "Who are you?" she stammered, raw panic threading through her words. "I'm someone." "Who knows your history, Alyssa?" the woman said, stepping closer. "Your real history." "What do you mean?" Sarah interjected, a lump forming in her throat. But the woman simply laughed, an icy sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard. "Everything you believe is a lie," she said, cutting her gaze between them. "Your mother, where she went, it all connects to this chaos." "No," Alyssa whispered, stepping back. "That's not true!" But the woman continued, her voice sharp and commanding. "Your mother was taken, and you, Alyssa, you're the key. This is all about you." Suddenly, everything came crashing down. The girl, the explosions, the man with the detonator. All of it was a setup, a trap. Sarah's heart sank. What did this mean? Then, before they could process the truth, the woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, a remote control. "You really should have learned more about your family," she taunted, fingers hovering over a button. Without thinking, Sarah lunged forward, a desperate cry escaping her lips. "No!" But it was too late. A blinding flash erupted from the device. The ground shook once more, shaking everything to its core. When the light faded, the woman was gone, and all that remained was silence, a profound stillness hanging in the air. Alyssa fell to her knees again, hands clenching the dirt. "What just happened?" she gasped, struggling to understand, and Sarah could only watch, breathless and shocked, as everything they knew crumbled. What was the truth? What was buried beneath the chaos? And how deep did this darkness go? A heavy silence settled, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The dust hung in the air, thick and choking. Alyssa knelt, eyes wide, staring at nothing. Sarah felt like she was sinking. The ground had opened up beneath them. What had just happened? The sense of disbelief swirled in her like a tempest. "One truth after the other," she whispered, her voice trembling. What did she mean? But Alyssa couldn't answer. Her gaze remained fixed on her father, the pain battling with confusion in her eyes. Sarah reached out, her heart pounding, wanting to comfort her friend, to bridge the growing chasm between them. And then everything jolted back to life. A scream pierced through the chaos, a sudden flare of panic igniting once more. Sarah whipped around, her breath catching. The crowd surged, pushed by a force unseen. Bodies crashed against each other. "No!" a voice shouted, raw with fear. "Run!" Amid the screams, she caught sight of a shadow darting through the dust, human-shaped but menacing. The woman, the one who vanished moments before, reappeared, her face twisted into something not quite human. "Find the girl!" she shrieked, a frantic urgency spilling from her lips. "She's the key!" Sarah's heart raced. The girl. What girl? In a heartbeat, the crowd fractured, people scrambling, diving for cover. And then Sarah saw it, a flash of wild hair, the girl darting toward them, eyes wide with terror. "Alyssa!" Sarah shouted, trying to pull her friend toward safety, but Alyssa remained frozen. "We have to go!" But the girl suddenly stopped, her eyes darting. "You need to trust me," she cried, her voice sharp against the cacophony. "Trust you?" Sarah yelled back, her pulse hammering. "What do you know?" "Everything," the girl gasped. "But I can't talk here." Then the woman lunged, moving faster than the eye could track. Sarah felt a chill. Realizing the woman's eyes were now void of emotion, a blank blackness consuming her. "No!" Sarah lunged forward, instinct taking over. Then it happened in an instant. An explosion tore through the building again. But this time it was different, heavier. The ground quaked like a living beast. As she hit the ground, the world around her spun in a fiery glow. But in the chaos, something shifted inside, a feeling like ice in her veins. The girl had vanished. Where did she go? Alyssa's voice trembled beside her, thick with dread. "Not now," Sarah shouted, pulling Alyssa to her feet. They needed to leave. Now, but just as they turned, a deafening roar erupted, sending them flying backward. The air exploded with debris. When Sarah pushed herself up, everything changed. The air settled, revealing flame and shadow. But there was something even more shocking. There, among the wreckage, was the woman. Her face twisted, but now familiar. It was Alyssa's mother. "Mom?" Alyssa gasped, the word hanging on the air like a prayer. In that moment, everything crumbled. "You," Sarah began, the truth crashing over her like a tsunami. The woman wasn't just a stranger. She was a mother wrapped in layers of deception. "What is happening?" But before any explanation could surface, Alyssa stumbled forward, shaking her head. "No, it can't be true!" Alyssa's mother opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, another flash erupted, this time even brighter. The crowd gasped collectively, eyes wide with horror. In the blink of an eye, everything detonated again, but this time it wasn't just fire. A wave of energy pushed outward, leaving Sarah breathless. It was as if time stopped, and then a deafening silence blanketed everything. As the dust settled, a new figure emerged from the smoke. Someone Sarah never expected to see again. A familiar face twisted with hostility. The man from before. But beside him, holding a weapon and grinning maliciously, was someone she recognized from her past. A betrayal she thought she'd buried. "Surprise!" he shouted, eyes gleaming with a twisted joy. "Did you really think you could escape your fate?" Sarah's heart dropped, a constriction in her chest. This was more than just chaos. This was a reckoning. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation and dread. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the man's twisted grin morphed into a sneer. What lay beneath his words? This taunt that echoed through the smoke. Alyssa stood frozen, eyes flickering between her father on the ground and the startling figure of her mother. "No, what do you mean?" Alyssa shouted, fear clawing at her voice. The truth they were about to face felt like a monster lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce. Sarah reached for her friend, wanting to steady her, but Alyssa's gaze was locked onto her mother. Show her the truth. The man's voice cut through the chaos. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for something weighed down by secrets. And then, a loud crack of thunder ripped through the air. In a moment of sheer panic, Sarah instinctively grabbed Alyssa, pulling her to the side. But the ground heaved violently, shoving them back against the brick wall as dust and debris swirled around them. For a brief instant, clarity pierced the whirlwind. A flash of movement caught Sarah's eye. The girl, the one who seemed to be a thread woven into this dark tapestry, stood directly in front of the woman who claimed to be Alyssa's mother, fingers outstretched. "Stop!" the girl cried, her voice trembling but firm. "You can't hide the truth any longer." The moment hung in the air, heavy and thick. Then, like a dam breaking loose, everything shattered. A deafening wave of energy burst forth from the girl, flooding the area with a blinding light. For an instant, it felt as if time stopped. Shadows stretched and distorted, wrapping around the crowd in a whirlwind of fear. And then the light faded, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Alyssa gasped, eyes widening in horror. "What did you do?" she whispered, the tremor in her voice rising. But then her mother collapsed, the look on her face twisting to an expression of anguish. "No, don't!" she screamed. But it was too late. The girl's power unleashed something that lit the dark like wildfire. Then the ground erupted, not with a sound, but a feeling, a surge, a pulse. A ripple ran through the very fabric of what they knew. Sarah's heart dropped as she felt a pull, a connection deep within her. "No!" the man's voice echoed above the commotion, laced with panic. "What have you done?" Alyssa's mother lay on the ground, and a blinding light enveloped her. Sarah watched, breathless, as her body began to flicker, transforming. The very essence of this woman started to unravel. Then the truth emerged. The light revealed a figure, not just Alyssa's mother, but another identity. Someone more powerful, more influential, with glistening eyes that seemed to hold generations of wisdom. "Mom?" Alyssa's voice hitched. The woman wasn't who she'd always known. The crowd gasped, confusion rippling like a wave. "What?" someone shouted, disbelief echoing in their voices. The girl turned to Alyssa, expression urgent. "Now you know. You're not alone." Alyssa staggered back, the weight of betrayal crashing down. "But I thought you were dead," she cried, disbelief, hurt, and something else swirling in her eyes. In that moment, everything changed. A new reality dawned, and Sarah felt the ground beneath them shift. What they thought was a family torn apart was a legacy intertwined with power and darkness. The man stepped back, shock etched across his face, eyes narrowing. "You shouldn't have done this. You think you can walk away?" Sarah's thoughts raced. The truth was a storm, reshaping their lives in an instant. What were these connections? What new path lay ahead, filled with shadows and light? Alyssa remained frozen, mouth opening and closing, trying to process the devastation of everything she believed. Amid the rising panic, Sarah turned toward the crowd. Faces were twisted in fear and confusion. All eyes were on the spectacle unfolding. "Who are you?" Alyssa whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. And just as the woman opened her mouth to answer, another explosion shattered the moment. Time once again unraveled. The ground shook as danger rolled in. What lay ahead now? The questions multiplied, consuming Sarah's mind. What secrets remained buried underneath this web of life? Each moment felt like a ticking clock, edging closer to a cataclysm. Alyssa spun back to her mother, the urgency palpable. Questions buzzed around them. How deep did the truth go? And at what cost would it all come to light? The explosion's echoes faded into an eerie quiet, leaving only the distant sounds of sirens and cries. Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty settle on her chest as she connected the dots. The woman, Alyssa's mother, was more than just a familiar face. She was a part of something far larger and darker than they could comprehend. "Mom?" Alyssa's voice shattered the silence, filled with desperation. "What are you doing? Why now?" The older woman's eyes shimmered, a mix of pain and resolve. "Alyssa, I had to protect you. You were never meant to get caught in this web." "Protect me from what?" Alyssa stepped forward, anger slicing through her grief. "You left me. You chose to disappear." "I did what I had to," her mother insisted, voice trembling but firm. "They were coming for you, for all of us. And I thought—" The words fell off, choked by the grief of years lost. Sarah grasped Alyssa's hand, feeling her friend tremble. "We can't stay here," she urged, her heart racing. "We need to find a way out. There are still threats, and we're all targets now." As if on cue, the man re-emerged from the dust, his face twisted with rage. "You think this is over?" he bellowed, wielding the detonator with a mad glint in his eyes. The crowd recoiled, fear pulsing like a heartbeat. "No!" the girl shouted, bursting forward, small yet fierce. "You don't control this anymore." "Step aside!" he screamed, but something shifted within the air. A tide turning. The girl's bravery stirred something, stirring the very essence of the moment. With a surge of energy, the woman who was Alyssa's mother spoke, voice steady and commanding. "You're right. This ends now. No more running, no more hiding." The words ignited a fire deep inside Sarah. This was it, the confrontation they needed. "Together," she urged Alyssa, pulling her closer. "We can face this. We've already made it this far." And in that moment, Alyssa nodded, determination replacing despair. "For everyone I love, I will fight." They stood strong, shoulder to shoulder. The crowd began to unite, momentum shifting. Together, they faced the man, fire burning in their hearts. "This is no longer your game," Alyssa shouted, voice echoing with conviction. The man hesitated, the grip on his detonator faltering. Confusion crossed his features, panic mixing with anger. The tide had turned. The realization that his reign of terror might break dissolved his bravado. Seconds felt like hours as the ground pulsed beneath them. Then, with a final burst of shared strength, Alyssa's mother released an energy that spread through the crowd. It surged, a wave of light that engulfed them, battle cries mingling with hope. In that bright embrace, Sarah felt clarity wash over her. All the pain, all the grief, each was a thread anchoring them. They were stronger together. With one final push, the man shouted, "No, you won't take this from me." But it was too late. The light enveloped him, and with a fury, the energy erupted, drawing the darkness into itself. Everyone shielded their eyes as the chaos swirled, and when it faded, silence reigned. Alyssa's mother stood there, transformed, radiant. "You're safe now. The truth is yours to carry. Embrace it." Alyssa rushed forward to hug her, tears flowing freely as they united at last. Sarah could only watch. Fragility of peace. "We have to stay vigilant," Sarah said, looking into Alyssa's eyes, filled with unspoken understanding. Together, they both promised, knowing they had a journey ahead, shadowed but guided by the light of truth and resilience. And as they stepped forward, unsure of their path, somewhere deep inside, they felt ready for whatever came next. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support by smashing that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this. Ending. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to know this conclusion. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now.